Hey, True Believers, Englentine here with another episode of Comic Book Origins. This is where we take a look at the first appearance of a famous comic book superhero or villain. In this case, we're looking at Carol Susan Jane Danvers, who became known as Captain Marvel. As a matter of fact, she's in a movie that's out right now. And this is a bit of a cheat week. See, her first appearance is in Marvel Superheroes number 13. Now, while we'll see a panel from that, it's the only panel she's in, so I'm not going to go through the entire book to get to this, where we see her as head of security here, and she's saying, "So, General Bridges, I see you brought Dr. Lawson here, against my best advice. As usual, ta-da, ladies and gentlemen, the very first appearance of Carol Danvers." As head of security, of course, she notices that, no, she doesn't. She doesn't notice anything. Captain Marvel comes in, it's like, hey, I'm an alien. She doesn't notice anything. But anyway, there is actually another comic book we need to talk about, or at least a page of a comic book, and that's Captain Marvel number 17, where John Rogg is creating a machine. It's called the Psyche Magnetron, and it explodes, and it isn't mentioned here in the book, but this is where it happens, that some of Captain Marvel's energies go into Carol Danvers. And, of course, this is where she gets her powers. And this leads to the book that we're actually going to talk about today, and that's Ms. Marvel number 1, the first appearance of a superpowered Carol Danvers. And alrighty, starting off looking at the cover as we normally do, there's 3 word bubbles. One is a box with a lot of text in it. Not going to read it out, but of course, no, 4 of them, excuse me, I missed one. Wow, that is, one just saying, hey, it's the first issue, as if the number 1 doesn't tell you that. It's got a lot of busyness here. We've got the Spider-Man family with Peter Parker, JJJ, and Mary Jane. Scorpion attacking her, so I guess that's who she's going to fight. Apparently, she's blocking a laser beam with a door. It's really busy, but I have to be honest, I think the cover still works, and mainly because of the central figure of Carol Danvers, front and center, and I think that really makes it a dynamic cover. Busy as heck, but what it ends up happening is, because you have that one big figure of her, the rest just becomes interesting details. Once again, I'm not a big fan of word boxes, but that's a personal thing, and I think I could look past that. And starting off the book, thankfully, we have a big old splash page, you know, the kind we just loved in the 1970s and 80s. So it tells us that Jerry Conway's the writer of this book. We have art by John Buscema, care and embellishment by Joe Sinnott, John Costanza's letters, and Marie Severin colors. But if you go all the way down to the bottom, there's an asterisk that says, with more than a little help or aid and abetting from Carla Conway. So those are the credits there. And we, of course, have Ms. Marvel. It says, her name is her own, but for want of something better, we may call her Marvel. Ms. Marvel. Of course, the title of the book, This Woman, This Warrior. And because of her, the world may never be the same. I warned you to stay back, creeps. Now you're gonna die. Forget the guard, stupid. We got the cash. Let's move. And so we see Ms. Marvel fly down towards the robbers, and with one punch knocks out 2 of them. And we hear, holy Hannah, I don't believe it. Did you see that broad? Did you see what she did? Frankie and Phil, both of them, wiped out with one punch. This is New York, you bozo. Ain't you never seen a superhero before? So she's strong, so what? Once I get this car started, ain't nobody gonna? It's the dame. She's picking up the car like it's made out of cardboard. Sweet sister, she's gonna. And of course, wow. So we see Ms. Marvel then slam the car so hard down onto the ground that the guys rip out through the top of. They're dead. Ms. Marvel, in the second page of her first book, is now a murderer. There is no way these people survive. And one of the, I guess, is this one of the guys that popped out of the cars got a gun pointed at her? I sent someone behind me. Serious? I'm doing this and you have to go. I don't care if you're sick. You hear me recording. You're in the same room and I get Flimville over here? During Carol Danvers' big heroic moment in the second page of her book after she's killed 2 people, I'm getting... That's where you want to be when Jesus comes.
I think this video should have like a blooper reel.
I'm keeping this in. I'm keeping this in. I'm gonna move on here. Where were we? Oh yeah. The guy is behind her. It looks like he's one of the dudes that shot out the roof of the car, but his head would be split open. And Carol Danvers says, I sent someone behind me, planning to shoot me. If it weren't for my seventh sense, he might well succeed. As it is, not a chance, she yells, kicking him through a window, because you can't be a superhero without property damage. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? But here's something that I would really like to note. In the next panel, there's a young lady watching this whole thing, and oh my gosh, I feel bad for the mom. Okay, so she says, Mommy, I've never seen a woman like that. Have you? And the mother says, No, Susie, never. Wow, when I grow up, I just want to be like her. And then, of course, the thought bubble is ... exclamation point. It's like, here you see a mom, and her heart is breaking because instead of her daughter is now looking up to another woman, a superpowered woman in this case as well. Remember, kids, from the movie, we learned if you want to be a strong woman, just stand near an exploding engine, and then you'll get superpowers. That was the moral of Captain Marvel, the movie. Moving on. And we cut to inside the bank where the Scorpion's still there. Apparently, he's the leader of this particular gang. He's stealing the money, of course. All the stuff's going on outside. Nobody's noticing him except for one guard who goes, Oh my gosh, you're the Scorpion. He says, well, if you know who I am, then you know about my powerful tail. And he knocks him out with it. And then we see the Scorpion escape, and Captain Marvel's left there with all the people she killed and beat up, and people are like, hey, I can't believe it. This must be like that hoax they did with the Styrofoam Kong in the Empire State Building. And, yeah, the cops show up and say, hey, we got to take you in for questioning. She's like, no, that'll actually be evidence. So there's a case against these criminals. I'm just going to assault them and run away. And she flies off. So we see J. Jonah Jameson and Carol Danvers watching it on a movie, what transpired there, which is kind of weird considering it's 1977. So anyway, Jameson says, I've been neglecting the women's magazine section of our audiences. So he hires Carol Danvers to be an editor for their women's magazine called Woman, and says it should be filled with dietary tips and fashion, blah, blah, blah. She says, no way in heck. And we're moving on to Carol Danvers meeting Peter Parker and Mary J. Watson, and that is all that happens right here. It's just hey, I heard of you. You did this. Oh, wait, is that Peter Parker, the famous photographer? Blah, 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 yada, yada. And then we cut to Scorpion. As he's going into a building, he says, Corman has this whole joint wired into one big booby trap, but that's just fine with me, because pretty soon it'll all be mine. We see the Scorpion dodge another little booby trap to meet up with Professor Kerman Corwin, who owns the building, and it's filled with all sorts of sci-fi gadgets as well. And we just find out that he robbed the bank to get $200,000 to buy this particular building. Why, we don't know, but we are promised that we will meet Professor Kerwin Corman sometime later. And then we rejoin Carol Danvers and Mary Jane Parker. Whoops, sorry. At this point, she's Mary Jane Watson. Oh, Mary Jane Parker, whatever happened to you? Oh, yes, we know, one more day. Anywho, they're in her luxury apartment, and it is questioned here. How do you afford a fantastic layout like this? Do editors make that much money? And Carol says, no, it was from the book that she wrote about the space industry. And she mentions being the security consultant at Cape Kennedy. And I do like this because it does basically, it addresses the fact that Captain Marvel was there as an alien. It even says Captain Marvel's appearance at the Cape and my inability to capture him just about destroyed my security field career. I kept it together, or kept trying to hold it together until I finally went back to my first love, writing. So there you go. I like the fact that they address that she was not a very good security officer if that happened. And then she says, turns out I have more talent for the pen than the sword, and she begins to pass out. She says she's all right. Mary Jane asks if she wants to call a doctor. She says, no, but you better just go. So Mary Jane does actually leave, and she's all worried about Carol. Carol goes into her bedroom and just kind of collapses. Meanwhile, across town at the north exit of the Daily Bugle building, a fuming J. Jonah Jameson paces angrily back and forth, a snarl brewing deep in his throat. Blasted chauffeur, I Tell him to meet me at the south exit downstairs at 6:05 p.m. exactly. And here it is, almost 6:30. Where is that imbecile? I swear I'll fire him for this. Hey, what's that sound behind me? And we get a wham. And apparently he gets a me thing going to J. Jonah Jameson. I love how the cigar's flying up and the tie is no longer connected to his shirt. So he's either wearing a clip-on, which I guess that's what's suggested here. And we do see the Scorpion yelling, "It's your death knell, Jameson. For years I've plotted my revenge against you, and now at last, vengeance is gonna be mine." Holy crow, it's that Scorpion crook. Why, he grabbed that man. What's he gonna do? If you only knew, Buster. God, thank God you're not J. Jonah Jameson. I just totally flubbed that, sorry. Because Jameson's I'm a monster. McGargan is dead. And Jonah Jameson is my murderer. And in this court, the penalty for murder is death. Death. Death! Look, man, I love comics, but if you actually read them out loud the way they're written, like with the words that have been in bold print, you know, emphasized, or in this case, screamed. I mean, he's screaming in his own head, basically. It just becomes ridiculous. And you know what? That just makes me love comic books more. 60 seconds later, a now familiar figure flashes through the sunset sky. The Scorpion's gone, slipped off across the rooftop shadows. My seventh sense warned me too late that Jameson was going to be kidnapped. But perhaps there's still time to save him before the Scorpion So, are we saying that her seventh sense didn't warn her that, hey, he was in danger, but it warned her that Jameson was going to be kidnapped by the Scorpion? All right, that is some serious mental stuff right there. I did not know Ms. Marvel could do that. This part just, I don't know, I don't get it. So anyway, she goes to the Daily Bugle saying, "I feel as though I've been to this place before, but that's impossible." Well, you know, you were there getting hired by J. Jonah Jameson on the first page. Then you have people going, "Oh my gosh, now I've seen everything. First Spider-Man makes this office his hangout, and this woman's like, a flying woman." At this point, gang, the Marvel Universe is 16 years old, so you've seen the flying woman thing. And Joe Robertson is like, "Hey guys, don't worry about it. She's a good guy. Remember, we're doing a story about her stopping a bank robbery." Then he asked Miss Marvel her name, and she says, "I don't have one." The woman replies with silence, and for an instant her eyes lose their focus as she looks to a horizon invisible to normal human eyes. "I can sense the Scorpion carrying Jameson, bringing him somewhere deadly. Somewhere, a house, abandoned, derelict. Brooklyn." I'm sorry, I like the way that's said. A house, abandoned, derelict, Brooklyn. Her power is better than the teen trouble alert, telling exactly, "Oh, wow, this is the address, and let me see." And it makes me wonder, is it just attuned to J. Jonah Jameson? Like, is there no one else in danger around this city? It's just so weird. So in the last panel, the cops show up wanting to question her about the Scorpion stuff. She says, "Later days, cuz," and she's out of there. And with a leap through an uncurtained window, she's off, gliding over. Oh my gosh, that actually made me think of, I want to see this now. I want to see a superhero jump through a window and then have a curtain stuck to him. I was like, oh, just get off, while they're trying to fly around. Okay, I know that's kind of silly. We'll probably see it like on the Tick or something, but come on, tell me you don't want to see that. Anyway, it says, "A golden-haired wraith beneath the moon, she speeds eastward, passing at other windows, both bright and dark, passing one particular window belonging to a woman named Carol Danvers, whose apartment is shadowed and empty." Well, yeah, she's flying by it. It's her. Are we not supposed to think one is the other? Okay, let's continue. "Brooklyn. One-time home of Dodgers, part-time home of Norman Mailer, current home of the Scorpion, and future graveyard of J. Jonah Jameson." "Why, you mad fool, why?" "I offered you everything, money, fame, membership in my private club. Why do you want to kill me?" "Because I don't like you, Jameson. Because I hate you. Look at me and see if you can understand that. You see someone powerful, right? Someone with more strength than most people know in a lifetime. But when I look at me, I see a freak. This isn't a costume, Jameson. It doesn't come off. Remember when I was just a crummy private investigator you hired to track that Parker kid and find out how he took his exclusive photos? Remember how you took me off that assignment and paid me to be a guinea pig for a mad scientist experiment? Remember? We do. It happened in Spider-Man number 20. I love the little notes. Yeah, once again, I'm sorry, if you read it out loud, if you read a comic book out loud, you got to really hit the I'm a freak in a costume, because that's how they write it. It comes off weird. So the Scorpion leaps forward. He's got a magnetized key, sticks in a machine, which apparently is lowering Jameson into a vat of acid, ignoring the fact that he's got super strength and he could have just tossed him into the vat. Yeah, comic books, they're weird. What you gonna do about it? But then we get quite a strange little thing happen in the panel as Jameson is lowering. The liquid in that vat is acid, Jameson. It won't kill you much. And then the strangest thing, we get Jameson, he's lowering and he goes, choke! You know, it's like that kind of thing. You know, I just think this is very poorly lettered. Sorry, gang. I'm not thumbs-upping this particular panel, but it is funny in the way they did that because it turns into choke. Okay, I think I've got it now. So Carol is saying, this is it, the place I sensed back at the Daily Bugle. If only I could understand why the Bugle offices seem so familiar. No, can't think about that now. See, I haven't read this in forever and a day. Seriously. And I don't think I've read too much of Ms. Marvel's series. Maybe one or two issues here or there. Does she not know that Carol Danvers and Captain or Ms. Marvel is the same? Is that what we're getting at? See, right here she says, if I'm to make my way through the death trap maze I sense beyond this door, I'll need all my concentration and all my Kreeborn skill. Kreeborn? But I'm an Earth woman. Why did I think? So this is just like the movie. We have all the information and we're waiting for her to catch up. Except for the comic book is better than the movie. Watch out! Daydreaming almost cost me my life. These laser beams are heat activated, turning the warmth of a living body. No way to pass. Captain Marvel jumps in using a door as a shield. She says, now what I hear. Machinery grinding in the walls, but that metal door sliding shut to block the corridor. Only seconds to glide under it, but seconds are all I need. I'm almost at the end of the maze. I better hurry. Now, how could she possibly know that? How does she have a layout or something? I guess it's her seventh sense, the teen trouble alert, that helps her out. But why not try, if you can figure out how far the maze is, why not try to go through it rather than through it? You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like you don't go between the toll booths, but you still say you go through it. Actually go through the toll booth this time. Anyway, she's in the middle of all of this. Hey, I'm worried about the death traps. She goes, if I were anyone but who I am, I'd be finished, but I am who I am. Thank you, Popeye. We're glad you're here to help. Anyway, she finally reaches the room that the Scorpion is in and decides that, hey, I'm going to hit you, but I'm still going to have an existential crisis. But as she flies the last few feet into a Scorpion's lair, the woman seems to hear an echo of her own words. I am who I am. And for just a heartbeat, she falters. Eh? Who on earth are you? Scorpion! No, I'm the Scorpion. That's a better question than you know. Okay, yeah, I added in the I'm the Scorpion. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Ms. Marvel flies past J. Jonah Jameson, and he's like, hey, help me. And she's like, oh, I thought you don't like superheroes. But while she's gloating, Scorpion throws a big machine at and says, hey, I bet you thought you knocked me out, but I'm way much tougher than what you think. I'm the toughest one, and why are you wearing Captain Marvel's outfit? And he says, if you tell me, I'll let you live. And she flips over and then says, I'm not like an acrobat, Scorpion. Like a Kree soldier, what you said about my costume. It's made me remember, like coming out of a fog. My costume is like Captain Marvel's for a reason. My powers come from the alien Kree race. The powers of a warrior born. Wham. And you never actually see the permanent teeth damage. Have you ever noticed, like, they always make fun, like, the teeth get knocked out, but you never see them, like, in the next issue missing any? Okay, so I came up with the term Silver Age silliness just because, you know, and in all honesty, it matches the Golden Age as well. I've got to come up with something like the super seriousness of the 70s super seriousness, where it's so dramatic that it just becomes silly. Okay, so this is, mind you, all of this dialogue is during a knockdown, drag-out fight where they're throwing each other into all sorts of machinery and everything. Lady, you're crazy! I heard about the Kree. They've got sentries who fought the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, how their science is 1,000,000 years ahead of Earth's. But you sure aren't one of them. The way you talk, you're as human as I am. You don't even have an accent. I don't know what you're trying to pull, but it won't work. Ugh. You're right, Scorpion, I'm not a Kree, but in some ways I don't understand. I've gained powers from the Kree, super strength, flight, and a strange seventh sense. And one more thing, total amnesia. You mean you don't remember your past? Bunk! Believe it or not, I've been so busy fighting crooks these past few days, I haven't thought once about my blackout spells or about my complete lack of memory. Maybe I've had a mental block against thinking about my past, but the facts remains. I don't know who I am. Hey, what are you doing? This is the most awkward information dump in any comic book I've ever read, ever. I mean, seriously, there's no reason for her to be saying all of this to the Scorpion. It's just like, okay, we need to get this out there, Bob. What are we going to do? Okay, we need to get it over here. I'll just shove it in the fight scene. Yeah, we just need to get all that information about who she is and what's going on. Just put it in the fight scene. Yeah, you know what to do. So Ms. Marvel yells, what do you think I'm doing? I'm winning. And she throws Scorpion into the vat of acid, which pours all over him, and burning and shrieking, he runs away. And she's like, my lord, that poor man. That's when Jonas Jameson's like, hey, get me down from here. And she says, I will. And she gets him down, but says, my costume really does tie into Captain Marvel, so call me Ms. Marvel. And says, you're crazy. And she says, well, I've got some things to figure out, but please, while I'm doing that, just go easy on me. He asks her to get the cuffs off, and she just smiles and goes on her merry way. Epilogue, the morning after. And we have Jameson basically saying, hey, you got to get an expose on that Miss Marvel woman. Nobody's going to be humiliating J. Jonah Jameson, especially a woman. And Carol's like, hey, you know, she is more mysterious than that Spider-Man dude. And he's like, don't ever mention that name, kicks him out. And she's like, oh, wow, you know, there goes the pussycat J. Jonah Jameson. He's all mad again. And this would be a nice place if it wasn't for him. And says, funny, isn't it? Jameson's given me a mystery to solve. Plus, I have one of my own. But which is the greater enigma? The woman named Carol Danvers or the warrior we all call Ms. Marvel? And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the very first appearance of Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers with superpowers. I showed you the very first appearance of Carol Danvers, which is no great shakes, and that's why I decided to do this book. A little bit of a cheat, but I hope you enjoyed it. Personally, I liked it. I thought it's a decent book. It holds up. There are some points of contention. It doesn't really spell out the fact that she doesn't know. You know, you kind of get it while it's going, that she doesn't know that Carol Danvers and Ms. Marvel are the same person, which I think adds a little bit of a layer to it. I think they should have done something to make it a little more blatant. Maybe I'm just being stupid and I need my hand held on this one. I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, there's some story discrepancies, but that's going to be in any comic book, definitely of the decade. It does get a little bit too earnest for my taste to touch, but not so much that it ruins the story for me. Here's a little hint as to next week's comic book origins. I forgot to do a hint last week. Here's this week's, or what's going to be next week's anyway, to what I am sure will be the least watched comic book origins of all time. Right now, I believe Aquaman is holding that record. So there you go, gang. What do you think? Let me know who you think this is in the comments below. Trust me, there's been a theme. Also, what do you think about the video? Write that down as well. Who should I do after I'm done with this particular theme I am doing? And don't forget to click like, subscribe if you haven't done it already. Definitely hit that notification bell because that's all YouTube really cares about. And go on over to Patreon or Ko-Fi, help the channel out because they have been messing me over recently. Certainly appreciate everybody who's already done that. And to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.